This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am joined once again by Jill Bucaro from Wellness Riot. How are you today, Jill?
I'm really good. How are you, Jamie?
Superb, superb. We are here today to speak about natural sweeteners, something I have quite
Hmm.
a fascination for right now. I don't tend to eat much sugar at all. We have spoken in the past about the evil world of sugar and all of that stuff.
Yeah,
But I was actually quite shocked today looking at some numbers regarding the consumption of sugar in the United States.
yeah. So the average American consumes about 17 teaspoons of added sugar every single day.
17.
And 17,
Okay.
so that would be added. So not
Yeah.
like an apple or a
Yeah.
grape. That's on top of that. And then 13 teaspoons a day of high fructose corn syrup. So like, wow. And
Yeah.
I'm not having that. So somebody's having way more than
Yes.
I am to balance me out.
It's funny, we had some friends round for actually they were family round for tea and biscuits the other day, and they asked for sugar in their tea, and I didn't even know if we had any sugar in the house. It took me ages to find it. I mean, there's some brown sugar, I guess, for baking and things, but even
Hmm.
that's it's a relative rarity around these parts.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Same in my household too. We use things like we're going to talk about like honey and dates and maple syrup and all those good things that are, still are a sweetener but have benefits to them, which is, so helpful. If you're going to have something sweet, you can incorporate it, incorporate some healthy stuff into it as well. But yeah, so before we get into each of those, I'll tell you how much we consume of each of those and we can like compare.
Okay.
So the average American consumes only 1/3 of a teaspoon of honey. So
Okay.
that's an
Okay.
average. And then let's see, 2.9 ounces of maple syrup, real maple syrup
Okay.
per year. And we'll talk about that. And then about 1.5 cups of dates. So that's the average American, what they consume in a year, on average, like
Wow.
compared to what, yeah, to
Right.
compared
Okay.
to 13 or 17 teaspoons of, sugar or high fructose corn syrup a day. So hopefully we can, inspire some people to make the shift over to these more natural sweeteners because they are losing out in the quantity realm.
Now, these natural sweeteners have been used for centuries and centuries, if not millennia. So
Yeah.
they have quite the history, and now most people would turn to processed sugar as their sweetener of choice. But let's start with honey. What are the positive advantages of consuming honey as opposed to processed sugar?
Yeah. So, like you said, honey is one of the oldest sweeteners
Yeah.
known, like on record to humanity. So, dating back to at least Egyptian, 2 to 3,000 years ago, but
Yes. Yeah.
probably they say up to 10,000 years or more than 10,000 years is when we would have first encountered a hive, which, kudos to those people for getting in there and figuring out there's
Sure.
honey in there. But yeah, so raw honey contains 22 amino acids, 27 minerals, 5,000 enzymes. And enzymes are just those chemicals that help processes take place in our body and reactions and things like that. And so some of the minerals include like iron, zinc, potassium, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, selenium. It has a few vitamins. It has antioxidant properties. So, relieving or reducing that oxidative stress and that inflammation, soothing properties. So, that's why you see it a lot in like cough drops and,
Yes.
throat, things because it's like very soothing. But also wound healing. So, like honey, like Manuka honey, which is made only in New Zealand, has been shown to have antibacterial properties. So, like backdated, to the Egyptians, it's like it's been used for wound healing because of those properties. Um, and then there's also some evidence to say that it can help with like a histamine response or like, allergies because if it's local, because that local honey is, comes from the pollinators that are in your
I
area.
see. I understand. Yes, yes, yes.
Right. So there's that connection that can help, some people be more tolerant of their environment. Now, if you're severely allergic, I mean, that's a different story, but it can, has been shown to help kind of like relieve a histamine response or, lower the histamine response. So that's really interesting. And did you know honey never expires?
I did know, being a survivalist, I know all about that.
Yes.
I have gallons of the stuff downstairs. No, not really gallons, but I do have some. Now, not all honey is created equal, that's for sure. I mean, you mentioned Manuka honey, which is a very kind of specific type of honey.
Mm-hmm.
But how does one know if one is getting good quality honey?
Yeah. So you want to look for local, raw, and organic whenever possible, or
Right.
even any combination. It might be local and raw, or like local, raw and organic. Because the filtering and processing eliminates a lot of the phytonutrients and the benefits of the honey. So if you can look for like raw and unfiltered, that's the best, because all the benefits can be eliminated with heat. And the only way to get really golden, clear honey is to heat it. So unfortunately, most of the honey, on the store shelves is not going to give you those health benefits that we're talking about. In fact, they did a test. They took 60 different types of honey off of like supermarket shelves, and 76% of them had no trace of bee pollen, which should be in all honey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, can honey be used as a direct replacement for sugar in most applications?
Okay. So honey is a little bit sweeter than sugar. So if you're going to substitute in something like tea or a sauce, you might want to go down a little bit in the amount. In addition, if you're using it to replace a dry sweetener, like in baking or something like that, then you might have to alter like the dry wet ingredient ratio because it might be too dense or something like that. So that's just like a liquid to, like a dry sweetener kind of issue. But it is a touch bit sweeter than sugar. So if you're replacing it in something, you can always try a little bit less first, taste it, and then, sweeten up if you need to.
Superb. Now, the second thing you mentioned there was maple syrup. I always think of maple syrup as being inherently Canadian, but I think most of it actually comes from the States, does it not?
No, most of it comes from, you were right.
I was correct. Okay, all right.
Canada, I was going to say Canada, Canadians in Canada, they produce the largest amount. So they produce more than America, and the Native Americans in North America, so spanning Canada and the United States, were the first to tap maple trees and use, maple syrup. They just boil it down. But yes, Canada comes out on top here.
Okay. Now, what are the health benefits of good quality maple syrup?
So it contains small amounts of minerals, calcium, potassium, manganese. It also has a few antioxidants, and then, so those are the health benefits. It's still a sugar. Yeah. And what I would say is that look for 100% pure maple syrup. Right. So not pancake syrup or waffle syrup.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, and there's no, I don't want to say like, regulation, like they can call anything syrup, like corn syrup and fruit syrup and stuff. So you want to look for 100% pure maple syrup. And then you might see differences like in the amber color, like grade A or grade B, or light or dark. And I just found out that just means when it was kind of made. So the lighter syrup is made earlier in the season, and the darker, I had no idea. I thought it had to do with the mineral content of it. So
I knew that.
We all learned something.
Now, I want to put up a picture on the screen right now because you sent me a picture of something that looked absolutely disgusting. It's Captain Crunch's artificial maple syrup. So it's blue. Yeah.
Can you believe that?
Okay. I don't know who eats this stuff. I guess it's angled at kids, but yeah.
100%, because there's also Fruity Pebbles syrup, and so they're taking the cereals that, we, loved as kids, or they think kids love, right?
Right.
And they're turning them into the syrups. But I mean, this is like that high fructose corn syrup that's like, mostly fructose. It goes right to the liver.
Yep.
It's very taxing. I mean, not that, refined sugar of any sort is like, healthful, but that high fructose corn syrup has a really like an elevated impact in a negative way on our systems and the liver, pancreas especially. So yeah, plus the, blue number one, those artificial food dyes have been shown to cause all sorts of issues, with our children and attention, focus, hyperactivity. So no go.
Okay. And the third on your list was dates. Now, I'm rather partial to dates. And when you sent me that email, I thought, oh, I'll have to have some dates. So I had a smoothie with a whole lot of dates in it today, which was really quite something. Dates, of course, you have to approach from a bit of a different angle because they're essentially solid or soft solid, shall we say.
Yes. Yeah. No, so dates are one of my absolute favorite. And I think most of my life, I turned my nose up at them because I thought they were maybe like in the prune family, or like they were in fruit cakes, or they had this negative kind of
what's
like,
wrong with prunes?
I don't know, but like it's negative. It had kind of this negative like umbrella, I guess, like as I was growing up. And so then I started having them though at like a farmer's market. So I was lucky enough to live in California for years and years. California grows a lot of the dates in America, and they are so good. They're so caramely. They're so delicious. And this is one of the sweeteners that has fiber in it, which makes it much different than a lot of other sweeteners. So one medjool date can have about 1.5 grams of fiber. So that's a lot, which helps it balance out, what they call that glycemic index, or how quickly a sweetener is going to shoot up your blood sugar, after eating it. So even though, there's sugar in the date, that fiber is going to help even it out. So you're not going to have such a spike as you would with something like, a table sugar or fructose syrup, or, even really honey or, maple syrups. They don't have that fiber content.
With you being so fond of dates, how do you integrate that into your diet daily, weekly, and the like?
Yeah, so I eat them as snacks, like a sweet treat. If you put like a little like almond butter or peanut butter in them, it's like, oh my gosh, so good. But I use them in smoothies as well. So anything I can blend, and the one tip I will give you is that, because it depends on where you buy them, but if you have to buy them in the store, sometimes they're a little bit drier, or a little bit firmer or harder than if you would be able to buy them, at a market. So you can soak them in some hot water before you're going to blend them, into like a sauce or a smoothie, or I just cook them in with my oatmeal and things that are sweet. I just cook them right in, and then they just kind of dissolve away. I throw them on salads. I mean, anything you can blend, but they have a really good caramel. They're a great substitute for caramel. So like if, you can whip them up, or now there's date bark. So you smush a lot of dates down, and then you can smear like peanut butter or tahini or almond butter over it, and drizzle chocolate over with some toppings. And then you cut it into bars. I mean, it's like caramel. It's so good.
Yeah, I can see that. All right. I may have to look into that, because we're exploring some new snacks for Elliot's lunch pail. So
yeah,
that sounds good to me. Well, yeah. Jill, thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution today. Always a pleasure to speak with you. And I'm going to be looking at honey, maple syrup, and dates in a rather different manner from here on in.
Excellent. Good to see you.
We'll speak soon. Bye for now.
Bye.